When somebody comes into your office, into your store, whatever they're doing, okay, you should get their information. Get their address, get their email, get their phone numbers. If it's an individual, don't be afraid to get a driver's license. When I go to the doctor's office, they usually copy my insurance card and my driver's license. There's a picture on that license. Find out who you're dealing with, okay? Is it a corporation? Is it an LLC? Is it an Inc.? Is it a CO? Is it a PA? Is it a PC? Do they go under a trade name? The New York Mets are not the New York Mets. If you sue the New York Mets, you're suing nothing. Okay, they are the New York Metropolitan Baseball Club, Inc. Okay, the Mets are just a trade name. And you'd be surprised. People are sly. They know how to do it. You'll get a check, and it'll be not the name that they're actually doing business under. And that's very important to find out what their corporate status, if they're an individual, if they're not an individual. What I'm going to say next is very controversial. If you can, you should do it. Get a social security number. The reason I say this is to get what we call a default judgment against somebody. If somebody ignores your complaint and doesn't file a response, you get an automatic judgment from the court, and I'll explain what a judgment is in a few minutes. In order to get that judgment, there's something called the Soldiers and Sailors Act, which means that you cannot get a default judgment against somebody who is in the active military. The way I know, it makes sense because the person may be overseas fighting and may not be able to defend that lawsuit. I can't serve a post office box. They're very small, they're very hard to furnish. People don't live in post office boxes. Okay, every time you open a post office box, you have to give the post office a street address. Get the person's street address. Okay? Well, the post office box is very nice. I'll mail you letters to your post office box. But do me a favor, just give me your street address. Okay? There's a reason businesses have post office boxes. They want to go in the morning to pick up their mail. They have too much mail, and the mailman doesn't want to lug it all around. Okay, but if an individual has a post office box, unless they're on some rural route somewhere, they're telling you that they don't want you to know where they live. Okay, and that's important because to serve people, I need a street address. I can't serve a post office box. Nobody lives in the post office box. Well, businesses traditionally are harder to collect against. They don't really care if it's a small business about their credit rating. Despite what you may hear, the USA, the United States, is very business friendly. People can run a business into the ground and reincorporate the next day and start running a new business. And you're left with a bunch of debt. It's very simplified, but what Enron was doing, Enron was showing all profit because they created a second company and they were just charging all their pencils and all their debt onto that second company. So they looked like they were a company with pure profit. And their debtors had to sue this bogus company that what they were doing was fraud in reality. But what I'm saying is it's very hard to sue a company. Companies, like Governor Romney said, corporations are people too. Well, he was kind of right when he said that. Corporations are a legal entity. So if you're the president of the company and you sign a contract with me, a line of credit, okay? I can't sue that president individually. I can only sue the corporation, okay? The corporation may be bankrupt. The corporation may have no assets. He may have just opened another company. There's a lot of them, but the basics are that before you could, it's only on consumer debts. So the dentist bill, any consumer type of bill that you're doing. If you're doing business to business, that doesn't fall under fair debt collection. But to simplify it, there's basically some notice requirements that have to go on letters, and you have to send a 30-day letter out before you can actually file a suit against somebody. So what do? You have this bill, it's not getting paid. I don't encourage people to sue immediately. I think you should set up some time schedule where you act on your bills. My office, I send at least 3 30-day letters on the first of each month if the bill is delinquent. two axioms of collection law. One is the more that you sue for, the harder it is to collect. I love bills that are $1,000 to $5,000. People aren't running off the bankruptcy court. They're going to try and work those kinds of things out unless they have a ton of them. The other one is that the longer you wait, the harder it is to collect. People sometimes, the statute of limitations is 6 years. After 6 years, you cannot sue. You shouldn't let them get too old. A year at the most. People are transitory, they move around, you're not going to be able to find. If you are a corporation, you cannot represent yourself. It's part of the trade-off of being a corporation. Remember, you're a separate legal entity. You must have an attorney. The only exception is in small claims court if the case is under $3,000 or under. I usually put my cases in what's called the special civil part. It's special. Those are here cases between $0 and $15,000. It is designed to hear cases expeditiously. You will have a result on your case within 4 to 6 months, as opposed to the law division, what we call the law division, which is where the big boys play, which can take a year to 2 years before you get any kind of resolution. Filing suit. That is your only legal means if somebody is not paying you. Wishing them to call you and pay you doesn't work. I have people call me up all the time. They want to take a billboard saying what, like, you know, the dirtbag the person is who owes them money. They want to run an ad in the Asbury Park Press. They want to try and ruin their business. That will just get, they want to file a criminal complaint against them for theft of services. Those things really don't work. You want to keep your eye on the ball. There's actually no substitute for having to do that, unfortunately. But that is the legal means of getting yourself paid. Most of the cases that we file, probably 75% or more, wind up being defaults. And by default, I mean that the person doesn't actually answer the complaint, doesn't contest the suit, and it goes right to judgment. One thing that you should know in the special civil part, you must venue your case in the county where the person does business or resides. So if I am a dentist and I have a patient in Bergen County and he's not paying my bill and I decided that I want to sue him, I must send that case to the Bergen County courthouse. I can't file it in Ocean County. You don't ask me why that rule exists, but that rule exists. If it's a law division case, I can put it in my county. If it's a special civil part case, I have to sue where the defendant is. So I will always call my client when I have an out of county, when it's not a Monmouth or Ocean County case, because I represent people all over the state, and I will say, you know, I have to put this case in to say it. Is that okay? If the case is contested, I do need the client to come with me to court. Unclaimed is considered service. You're supposed to go pick up your certified mail. Okay. If they file an answer, they have 35 days to contest the suit. If they don't, you're going to get a judgment. If they contest the suit, it's going to be scheduled for a hearing or a trial down in court. In the morning, they will send you to mediation. I was down at Monmouth County Courthouse yesterday morning doing mediations in special civil court cases. They try and get the case settled in the morning. If the case isn't settled in the morning, we come back to the judge in the afternoon, and as long as he can hear it, you'll have a hearing. It's not Judge Judy, okay, or Judge Koch, or whatever those judge shows are. Those are a free-for-all. Those are a TV show. This is actually court, okay? And the rules of evidence do pertain there. Everybody doesn't start screaming at the judge. The rules of evidence, like, people don't just hand stuff to the judge. There are objections and hearsay and all kinds of things like that. I encourage people to settle their case. I don't want judgments, I want money for my clients, and I want money for me, because I work on contingency. So if I can settle a case and get people paying, I get a portion of that payment. But if the person isn't contesting the case or doesn't care, the only legal remedy you're going to get is a judgment. So I can work out payment plans with people, and I encourage people to do that. Something's sometimes better than nothing as long as it's within reason. If we file a payment plan with the court, it's called the stipulation of settlement, and that's enforceable. So if the person stops making the payments, I can file a certification signed by my client, and the judge will give us a judgment for whatever is left that is owed. What's a judgment? A judgment is what I call a legal IOU. Okay, it gets recorded. You need to send it to Trenton to be recorded for a fee, of course. Everything has a fee. But it is a lien on a person's real estate. If a lot of people in New Jersey own homes. They owned more homes a couple of years ago than they do now, but they still own homes. They have equity in those homes. If they go to sell that house or to refinance that house, in order to pass good title, they have to satisfy those judgments. I'm getting paid on a judgment that I had entered in 2004. Judgments also go on credit. So if people are going to buy a car or apply for a mortgage or do all those kinds of things, especially nowadays where they're really cracking down on people, they may have to satisfy that. I get those calls all the time. Judgments are good for 20 years. Okay, so sometimes you learn from the court process, it's not immediate self-gratification. I have those clients who want to get paid, like that. And they say, let's just record it, sit back, and let's see what happens. People are property owners. If you get a bankruptcy notice, and I think everybody gets those in any kind of non-cash business, if you're owed bills, you're going to get a bankruptcy notice once in a while. It's pretty much done. You have to stop. Okay, if I'm in the middle of a lawsuit and somebody files bankruptcy, I cannot proceed with the lawsuit. And inevitably what I get is two things. Either, and I won't get into all of the technicalities of bankruptcy. I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer, but sometimes they get converted between different types of bankruptcies. A Chapter 13, if they don't qualify, will become a Chapter 7. But basically what happens is the debt is discharged, which means you're done. You've now lost the money, write it off, whatever you're going to do, you're never getting paid. Or there's a dismissal, and a dismissal means that they have dismissed the bankruptcy case and you can resume your civil case. Another word of advice for everybody is, if you're getting paid on account or whatever, please copy the checks. For some reason, for me, overwhelmingly, I do credit cards too, and I print out the credit card receipts and put them in the file. Overwhelmingly, I still get personal checks. Sometimes I get, the bank checks, but they're personal checks too that I get. I copy. I'm a little crazy. There's another word, but we're recording. I won't use it. I copy every check that comes to my office. It's a really good practice. Just copy it, throw it in your file. If you're a paperless office, scan it, put it in the file, because inevitably people will call me up and go, oh, I paid that. And I go, no, you didn't. Or they go, oh, I paid this one off. I've been giving you $100 a month. They go, no, you still owe me $300. And I go, tell you what I'll do. I'll send you a list of the checks that I've gotten in the credit, and you call me and tell me if there's a check that I missed. Never once have I gotten that call. So save your checks. It's also a good practice because you'll know where people bankrupt.